Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel, your go-to source for bold, thought-provoking commentary on the stories shaping South Africa and the world. Today, we are unpacking a story already sparking global controversy. A US-funded charter flight quietly departed Johannesburg, carrying 49 white South Afrikaners, granted refugee status by the United States under a controversial immigration policy linked directly to Donald Trump. This moment is historic and deeply polarizing. For the first time in post-apartheid history, white South Africans are being accepted into the US as refugees, a status usually reserved for people fleeing war, state persecution, or genocide. Yet here we are. This group, mostly rural families, boarded under tight security and diplomatic secrecy, heading for a new life in America and leaving behind a South Africa they describe as increasingly hostile. Let's unpack how we got here, and why this is bigger than just 49 people on a plane. This refugee flight stems from a little-known executive order signed by Trump during his final year in office. That order quietly classified white South Africans as a potentially at-risk group eligible for expedited refugee consideration. It was controversial from day one. While Trump's immigration policy notoriously blocked refugees from war-torn nations, this directive made an exception, based on race and political alignment. The Trump administration went further, accusing South Africa's government of enabling land grabs and ignoring violence against white landowners. In 2018, Trump tweeted that he'd asked the Secretary of State to investigate farm seizures and killing of farmers, citing a Fox News report. That tweet ignited a firestorm in Pretoria. South African officials condemned it as reckless misinformation, and civil society groups warned it would stir racial tensions. But the idea took root in some corners. In far-right media and US political circles, the image of the endangered white farmer became a cause. Afrikaner advocacy groups capitalized on the attention, reviving claims of white genocide, a term discredited by researchers but emotionally potent nonetheless. So what does the data say? Yes, farm murders do occur. Yes, violent crime is rampant. But no credible evidence suggests white farmers are being systematically exterminated. Most violent crime in South Africa affects black urban communities. Still, in politics, perception often outweighs fact. And for the Afrikaner families on that plane, perception is reality. They describe a South Africa where they're increasingly marginalized economically, culturally, and even physically. Some spoke of farm invasions, robberies, and a fear that land expropriation will eventually strip them of their livelihoods. Others cite affirmative action as a barrier to jobs and university access. Whether all these claims hold up under scrutiny, they reflect a community that feels under siege in a nation they once ruled. That's the irony. Afrikaners, descendants of colonial powers who enforced apartheid, now say they need international protection. It's a narrative that sits uncomfortably with South Africa's history of racial oppression. How did this flight get processed so quickly? Normally, US refugee cases take years. This group was fast-tracked in just 3 months. That's almost unheard of. US officials haven't given full details, but sources suggest Trump's refugee priority order remained quietly in effect. Right-wing advocacy groups reportedly lobbied hard, provided legal support, and arranged the charter flight. Human rights groups are furious. They argue this reveals a two-tier refugee system, one where black and brown refugees are turned away, while white applicants from a functioning democracy are quietly flown in through a back door. Back in South Africa, the backlash has been swift. The Department of International Relations called the flight insulting and politically motivated. The ANC is demanding answers from Washington and may file a formal complaint. Yet some opposition voices, especially Freedom Front Plus, defend the refugees, saying their safety concerns shouldn't be dismissed just because of history. But this goes beyond refugee policy. It's about race, trauma, and what justice looks like in a country still healing from colonialism and apartheid. Can Afrikaners truly claim victimhood in a society they once dominated? Or has post-apartheid South Africa failed to make all its citizens feel secure? We must also talk about land reform, the elephant in the room. The expropriation bill, passed earlier this year, allows for land seizure without compensation in specific cases. It aims to correct historical land theft. But it stirred deep fear among white landowners, particularly in rural areas, who see it as a looming threat. Many Afrikaners believe land reform will eventually wipe out their generational wealth. They argue the law creates uncertainty, weakens investment, and makes them targets. Government says it's committed to legal, orderly reform, but trust has collapsed. Even Afrikaner leaders are split. Some argue leaving is giving up, that their community must stay and help build a non-racial, inclusive country. Others say the dream of coexistence is dead, and leaving is the only path to security. For those 49 refugees now in the US, new challenges await. Refugee life is rarely glamorous. Economic hardship, social isolation, and cultural shock are real. And as high-profile asylum seekers, they may face scrutiny and backlash from Americans as well. The question now is, will more follow? Could this be the beginning of a broader Afrikaner exodus? Will America, or any other nation, continue granting asylum under these circumstances? Or will this story fade from the headlines? This refugee flight isn't just a political stunt, it's a signal flare. It shows that South Africa's transformation remains fragile, and that mistrust, especially along racial lines, still runs deep. Building a just society isn't just about new laws. It's about healing wounds, restoring trust, and imagining a future where all citizens, regardless of race, feel at home. Thanks for watching. What's your take? Was the US right to grant these refugees asylum? Is South Africa doing enough to make everyone feel secure? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and stay critical.